The word filicide is not known by many people because it goes against the most basic of human instincts and beliefs. The act of filicide is when a parent murders their own child. When it happens, it is extremely rare and usually occurs when a mother or father is suffering from a psychotic breakdown. After all, you need to be one of the worst types of evil to do that while thinking perfectly rationally. But on November 2nd, 2020, a Chinese man committed filicide so that he could start a new life with his mistress when he threw his two defenseless toddler children out of a 15-story window in a case that brought shock and disgust to the entire nation of over 1 billion people. In 2019, at the age of 25, Zhang Bo was a man living in the city of Chongqing who seemed to have a bright future ahead of him. He was married with a 1-year-old daughter and an infant son. In America, this is called a millionaire's family, but somehow that was not enough for him. While his wife was home taking care of their 2 kids, Zhang began an affair with a woman named Ye Chengchen, and he neglected to tell her that he was married with a family when it began. The husband and his mistress seemed to be in love, and when she did find out the truth about his wife, she demanded that he get a divorce if he wanted to be with her. So he dutifully did what she said. In February of 2020, the divorce was finalized. Under the terms, his now ex-wife, Chen Meilin, was to have full custody of their daughter, while Zhang was to pay her child support. His son was to live with him until the boy turned 6, where he would then go back to his mother, and then Zhang would pay child support for him as well. Zhang moved out of their apartment and went back to live with his parents, who assisted him in taking care of his son. While no one was fully happy with this arrangement, it seemed like the best compromise for everyone. However, Mistress now turned girlfriend, Ye Chengchen, was extremely upset. She told Zhang that she wanted to marry him and start their own family. But if he was paying child support for 2 kids, then how was he going to have enough resources to support their future new family and give them the lifestyle that they deserved? Also, she said that her parents would never allow her to be with a husband who had children from another woman. Ye was convinced that the only way for them to have a happy life together would be for him to get rid of his kids. Ye suggested that the only solution would be for his children to die. In her own words, they were a burden on their future life together. Now, when this idea first came up, Zhang's initial reaction was against it, but in a telling sign of his terrible character, his girlfriend suggesting that he murder his own children was not a red line for breaking up. Maybe he was really in love, or maybe he was just depressed because he ruined his first marriage for her and now things were coming to this. But any normal person would have cut off their relationship just then and there. And as they stayed together, Ye continued to pressure Zhang that he needed to do this. In a twisted turn, she made killing his children into her ultimatum. If he did not get rid of them, then she was going to leave him. "When the kids are gone, I will marry you," she said. "Why don't you kill both, because you will be killing anyway?" Rather than examine his life and relationship, even just a little to confirm his initial feeling that this was wrong, he stayed with her and allowed her words to slowly corrupt his mind. By the time that the summer ended, he gave in to her pressures and committed to killing his own children. Now, there was one major obstacle to this plan. His daughter did not live with him, and her custody belonged entirely to his ex-wife. So he called her up and asked if they could have his daughter over so she could play with her brother and get to know him better. For his ex-wife, this was a positive development, and she was happy to bring her over to his place for the day. On November 2nd, Zhang had both of his toddler children in his care at his home. This was the first time in months that he was alone with just the 2 of them, as his parents had went out. The 2 children played on the floor of the living room, while their father sat on the couch speaking to his girlfriend. He was losing his nerve to actually do this, so she increased the pressure. They were on a video call, and she took a knife and threatened to slit her own wrists if he didn't do it. When he paused, she started cutting, and he threw down the phone in a panic. In an act of pure evil, Zhang ran to the window, grabbed his 2 children by their legs, and threw them out. We can only imagine the terror they felt as the man who was supposed to protect them the most in this world betrayed his primary duty as a human. Chongqing is one of the largest cities in China, and there were dozens of people outside who witnessed the two small children hit the ground after they fell. The daughter was dead instantly, while the boy was barely alive. He was shortly afterwards declared dead at the hospital due to multiple organ failure. Zhang and his girlfriend had planned the double murder in advance, and they thought they were going to get away with it because it would look like an accident. After a few minutes, Zhang came outside in his pajamas and started playing the role of grieving father. He claimed to have been taking a nap as the kids were playing, and he woke up to people shouting outside. When he couldn't find his children, he looked out the open window and realized what had happened. Onlookers at the time filmed him, banging his head against the wall and crying in grief about the loss of his children. But it was all an elaborate act that quickly fell apart. According to Chinese media, Zhang Bo would end up confessing to the police, under questioning, that his children's death was an act of murder instead of an accident. We're not sure how the authorities managed to get his story to fall apart, but it seems likely that the opening for the windows would be high off the ground and extremely difficult for one toddler, let alone two, to actually climb out of. China is also a heavily surveilled country with cameras everywhere, so it's possible that video footage might have been captured of the two kids being thrown out of the window by their father. But Zhang's confession, along with text message history from the Chinese app WeChat with his girlfriend, backed up the story that she had conspired with and pressured him to murder his two helpless children. In December of 2021, both were put on trial for the murder of the two toddlers and found guilty. Zhang for committing the act, and Ye for encouraging him to do it, which made her equally culpable according to the court. Zhang and Ye disregarded the laws of the country, the principles of nature and humanity, seriously challenged the bottom line of law and ethics, and trampled on the social conscience. As the truth about what really happened became widespread, disgust and outrage rippled through the Chinese nation. They were sentenced to death with public opinion largely agreeing with the punishment. They were allowed to appeal their sentence, and were granted a second trial under China's justice system in April of 2023, with the results being the exact same. The execution verdict was then sent up to China's Supreme Court for final approval. For the children's mother, Chen Meilin, she will have to live with the pain for the rest of her life that the man she once loved and the father of her children committed the ultimate despicable act. On the day that the higher court reached the verdict, she dressed in black and carried a bouquet of white lilies to the temple where her children's ashes were being kept. Today I read the verdict to my kids and asked them to wait for the final result of the death sentence review, she announced to the media. Mom will make sure that justice is served. In January of 2024, with their appeals exhausted and following the Supreme Court's approval, the Chinese government announced that the death sentence was carried out. The details were not released to the public, but it's speculated that they died from lethal injection. A painless 22-minute process that was more humane than the fate Zhang Bo's children suffered with the planning of Ye Chengchen.